High in the shadowed peaks of the Pyrenees, the wind whispers of a hidden fortress, Montsalvat. Legends say the Templars built it as a sanctuary for the Holy Grail, a place untouched by time, guarded by vows older than faith itself. But those who seek it speak of visions, doors opening in stone, echoes of another realm behind the mountain veil. What if Montsalvat was never just a fortress, but a passage between worlds? Tonight, we follow the forgotten trail, where faith, power, and mystery converge beneath the eternal snow. Snow fell in slow spirals over the jagged crowns of the Pyrenees, turning the world to silence. The villagers of Aro called them the breathing mountains, for at night, strange murmurs rolled from the cliffs, as if something alive shifted beneath the rock. Shepherds spoke of lights flickering behind the snowdrifts, and some claimed to hear the low hum of bells that had not tolled since the time of the Templars. Centuries earlier, in 1307, when the order was hunted across France, a convoy of knights vanished into these peaks carrying a relic wrapped in crimson silk, the Sangreal, the Holy Grail itself, according to whispered chronicles of the Inquisition. The last letter of Grand Master Jacques de Molay mentions a fortress built where heaven meets the stone of time, guarded by those who see through the veil. That place was Montsalvat. Now, 700 years later, archaeologist Dr. Elise Moreau had returned to Aro after a decade of failed excavations across Europe. She had traced a fragment of an encrypted chart found in a suppressed Vatican codex known as Liber Arcana Templarium. The coordinates pointed not to a location but to a vibration pattern, a pulse within the mountain that mirrored the Schumann resonance of the earth itself. That night, as Elise spread the map on an oak table inside the old inn, the wind outside began to roar. The candlelight bent strangely, forming a trembling halo around the parchment. The ink shimmered with microscopic gold dust, revealing the faint outline of an archway embedded in the rock, marked with a single Latin phrase. Ubi mons apparitor, ibi incipit arcanum, where the mountain opens, the secret begins. And then, as the clock struck midnight, the inn's foundations shuddered. Somewhere deep beneath the valley, something ancient stirred, and a sound like a distant choir rose from the mountain's heart. By dawn, the storm had passed, leaving a silence so deep it pressed against the eardrums. Elise sat before the parchment, her fingers trembling as she brushed away flakes of dried soot. Beneath the surface, invisible under normal light, faint veins of metallic ink pulsed like living circuits. When she held the map close to the lantern's warmth, symbols began to appear, concentric spirals, intersecting lines, and 7 sigils that matched the seals of the Templar commanderies once hidden in the Pyrenees. Each symbol radiated toward a central emblem, a chalice enclosed within an equilateral triangle. The coordinates, when transcribed, didn't align with any known geography. Instead, they matched patterns of geomagnetic anomalies, the same ones recorded by NASA satellites around the Massif of Morne-Perdu, the Forbidden Mountain, long associated with Catholic legends of ascension. Elise recorded her observations in her journal. Montsalvat is not a location, but a frequency, a threshold. The deeper she studied, the more the map behaved like a living organism, responding to sound, to her own heartbeat, even to thought. And then she noticed it, along the map's lower edge, scorched into the parchment, were faint letters written in medieval Occitan. Translated, they read, "To open the fortress, seek the harmony of stone and spirit." As she whispered the line aloud, the lantern flickered violently. The reflection in the glass shifted, not her own face, but that of a man in a Templar surcoat, his eyes like molten silver. Behind him, walls of carved marble glowed with inner light. Elise spun around, heart pounding, but the room was empty. Only the faint scent of incense lingered, and from somewhere beyond the window came the echo of distant chanting, the same cadence heard in the Pyrenean winds for centuries. 2 days later, Elise followed the path of the ancient pilgrims, winding through ravines choked with mist and black pine. Her destination was Saint Lazier, a medieval monastery built atop Roman ruins. Local records hinted that the abbey once sheltered Templar refugees after the purge of 1307, and that within its crypt, carved into the mountain itself, lay there a hall of echoes, a chamber said to respond to prayers with voices not of this world. The abbot, Père Lucien, received her with wary eyes. He had heard of her research, and warned her that Montsalvat was not a myth to be touched lightly. Some doors, he whispered, do not open outward, they open inward. And those who enter never return as themselves. Elise convinced him to grant her one night in the crypt. As she descended the worn stone steps, the air grew colder, denser, alive with static energy. The walls glistened with moisture, yet faint inscriptions glowed beneath the moss, the Templar cross entwined with the Cathar sun. In the center of the chamber stood an altar of basalt, its surface engraved with a map identical to the one she carried, except this one pulsed faintly with blue light. When she placed her hand upon it, the light brightened, forming spectral ripples across the air. For a fleeting instant, she saw visions, armored riders scaling the cliffs under the blood-red moon, a chalice carried through a tunnel of stars, and a fortress whose towers shone like crystal beneath the earth. The vision ended with a whisper, not from her mind, but from the stone itself. The Grail is the gate. Seek where time breathes. When she opened her eyes, the chamber was silent. But a single drop of water fell from the ceiling and struck the altar, and where it touched, the basalt sang. Elise left the monastery before dawn, carrying with her a small relic Père Lucien had entrusted to her, a sealed copper tube, unearthed decades ago beneath the abbey floor. Inside was a thin roll of vellum, brittle as ash, covered in coded Latin and strange sigils that predated the Templar script. At the top, one phrase stood clear. Liber Montes Albi, the Book of the White Mountain. The Codex spoke of a brotherhood formed after the fall of Jerusalem, knights who abandoned the wars of men to protect the inner sanctum of the earth, where the Grail was hidden not as a cup, but as a frequency of light. It described 7 harmonic gates, portals that aligned only when spirit and matter resonated in perfect unity. The last gate, it said, rested beneath the mountain of Perduto Sanctum, today known as Morn Perdu. Elise's rational mind rebelled, yet every fragment of data sheet collected, seismic anomalies, magnetic distortions, local myths of glowing caverns, seemed to confirm the text. Her scientific training screamed coincidence. Her intuition whispered destiny. As she studied the codex, faint markings appeared in the margins, invisible before, now glowing faintly with a cold blue hue. The symbols matched those on the basalt altar. When she traced them with her fingertip, she felt a pulse beneath the page, like a heartbeat. That night, she dreamt of a vast door carved in obsidian, suspended in darkness. On its surface burned the same sigil she had seen in the crypt, a chalice surrounded by the sun. A voice echoed from beyond the door, ancient, patient, and sorrowful. When the mountain breathes once more, the fortress shall awaken. Elise woke gasping, the codex clutched in her hand, and outside, through the window of her inn, the mountain was breathing. The mist rippled like lungs exhaling. At sunrise, the valley below Morn Perdu shimmered as if wrapped in a translucent veil. The air vibrated faintly, a low, steady hum that made the snow tremble in concentric rings. Villagers said it was just the wind, but Elise knew it was something deeper. The readings from her seismograph were erratic, pulsing in perfect intervals, 8 beats per minute, mirroring a human heartbeat. She hiked toward the glacier trail, accompanied only by her recorder and the relic tube from St. Lazier. The higher she climbed, the more distorted reality became. Compass needles spun, and her GPS failed entirely. The mountain itself seemed to distort sound. Her own footsteps echoed twice, as though someone walked beside her. Halfway up, she reached a plateau where a massive granite wall rose like a cathedral facade. Carved into it were faint geometric lines that formed a perfect circle, 20 meters wide, and at its center, the sigil of the chalice. It wasn't natural. The precision was beyond medieval craftsmanship. She set up her instruments and began to play a low harmonic tone through a small speaker, a frequency based on the data extracted from the codex. The tone vibrated through the ice, and the circle on the rock began to shimmer faintly, as if dusted with gold. Then came the sound, deep, resonant, alive. The mountain answered. From within the stone, a second frequency rose, merging with hers until the air trembled violently. The snow around her feet cracked and fell away, revealing a stairway descending into the mountain's heart. Elise stood frozen. The entrance to Montsalvat had not been found. It had responded. The fortress beneath the world had just awakened from its long sleep. Elise stood at the edge of the newly revealed stairway, her breath turning to mist in the icy air. The opening pulsed with faint light, like the glow of embers buried under stone. The hum that had filled the mountain now shifted tone, no longer a drone, but a slow chant, rising and falling in strange harmonic intervals. She descended carefully, one step at a time, her flashlight trembling against walls polished smooth by unknown hands. Symbols emerged in the beam, crosses intertwined with spirals, constellations arranged in geometrical perfection, and depictions of a chalice radiating rays toward a crowned figure kneeling beneath it. Halfway down, she found an inscription chiseled into the passage. Non locus, sed transitus estimated. This is not a place, but a passage. The air grew warmer, heavy with the scent of incense and iron. Time itself felt distorted, seconds stretching into minutes, minutes dissolving into memory. At one point, Elise swore she heard whispers behind her, voices reciting in Latin a prayer she couldn't fully understand. Custodes arcani, lumen aeternum. Then she reached a vast chamber. Its ceiling vanished into darkness, yet pillars of crystal reflected her light in shimmering cascades. At the far end stood a colossal gate, circular, seamless, formed of obsidian and etched with the same sigils from the codex. In the center of the gate pulsed a faint light, rhythmic, alive. As Elise approached, the copper tube in her backpack began to vibrate, the vellum within glowing softly through the metal. The fortress was not merely an ancient refuge. It was a machine, a living monument built to resonate with the pulse of the earth, and something beyond it. The gate towered above her, its surface dark as oil yet alive with flickering patterns. The symbols moved, not engraved, but flowing, rearranging themselves like constellations shifting through time. Each rotation produced a subtle tone, as if the stone itself sang in response to unseen stars. Elise placed the glowing codex against the gate. Immediately, the resonance deepened. Waves of energy rippled through the air, distorting her breath, her heartbeat, even the light from her flashlight. The sigils on the vellum aligned with those on the obsidian surface, locking into perfect symmetry, and a sudden whisper filled the chamber, 1,000 voices in unison. The Grail is not the cup of blood, but the heart that remembers. The symbols flashed once, and the gate pulsed outward with force. Elise staggered back as her surroundings blurred, crystal columns bending, shadows elongating, gravity itself trembling. Then, as the hum reached its peak, the central circle of the gate melted into a pool of light. Through it, she glimpsed a landscape impossible to describe. Floating terraces bathed in azure glow, towers made of translucent stone, and rivers of light cascading through the air. It was a world both earthly and divine, half vision, half geometry. But among the splendor, she saw figures, armored silhouettes, motionless, like statues waiting for command. Their faces were hidden beneath ancient helms bearing the cross of the temple. The gate whispered again, softer now, almost intimate. Enter, seeker. The vow endures beyond death. Elise hesitated only a heartbeat. Then she stepped forward, and the light swallowed her whole. Elise followed the knight through a vast corridor carved from luminous stone. The walls pulsed with intricate patterns, not painted, but alive, shifting like veins carrying light instead of blood. Every step echoed in 2 dimensions at once, as if time itself produced a reflection. They entered a circular hall, vast and silent. At its center floated the Grail, not a chalice of gold, but a radiant orb of liquid light, suspended between 4 crystal pillars that emitted harmonic tones. Around it, runes flickered, forming words she could almost read, though not in any human tongue. The Grail, said the knight, it was never forged by hands. It is the heart of the earth, the memory of creation itself. When men sought to possess it, they lost it. Only those who remember the vibration of truth may behold it as it truly is. Elise felt drawn forward. The sphere pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, brighter each time she exhaled. She stretched her hand, and as her fingers brushed its surface, visions erupted through her mind. She saw Jerusalem burning beneath the crimson dawn, Templars fleeing with sacred relics, and a convoy vanishing into the mists of the Pyrenees. She saw the fortress being sealed, the knights chanting in unison as their bodies turned to light. And beyond that, she glimpsed Earth itself, surrounded by fields of resonant energy, a living, breathing organism. Tears filled her eyes. The Grail's voice resonated within her skull, deep and gentle. The fortress was not built to guard, but to remember. You are not its discoverer, Elise. You are its echo. The sphere dimmed, its light pouring into her chest in a single stream of brilliance. The knights knelt in silence. Montsalvat had chosen its new guardian. The light that entered Elise did not burn, it expanded. Every nerve, every thought, every heartbeat vibrated with ancient harmonies. The fortress around her seemed to dissolve and reform, not crumbling but shifting between ages. Marble became sand, towers became stars, then stone again. Time no longer moved forward, it resonated. She heard whispers within her, thousands of voices layered into one, monks, builders, warriors, all speaking in the same silent chord. They were not gone, they were Montsalvat. The fortress was not a building but a consciousness, a living archive of all who had served the Grail. Through their memories, she witnessed truths erased from history, how the Grail had first been discovered beneath the Temple of Solomon, how the Templars guarded not treasure but knowledge of the resonant path, a spiritual technology capable of bending matter with intention. The Church had called it heresy. The world, unready for its revelation, had buried it in legend. Elise fell to her knees, overwhelmed by the flood of memory. The knight approached her again, his eyes glowing like molten glass. "You have awakened what even we could not," he said softly. "You are bound to the Grail now, not by faith, but by frequency. The world above has forgotten its song, but you still carry it." The fortress began to tremble. The resonance deepened, echoing through her bones. Elise understood. The mountain itself was waking, syncing with the earth's pulse. And then came a single, thunderous thought from the Grail, clear as sunrise in her mind. "Go. Carry the light where it was silenced. The gate will open once more." The knights bowed as the chamber filled with white fire. Elise was lifted upward, not falling, not flying, returning. Montsalvat was vanishing again, sealing its secret, until the world was ready to remember. When Elise opened her eyes, she was lying on the frozen plateau where the gate had once been. The air was still trembling faintly, and the snow glowed with the afterimage of light, like embers scattered across ice. The entrance to Montsalvat had vanished, sealed beneath smooth stone as though it had never existed. Her watch had stopped. Her equipment lay scattered around her, screens flickering with static, though none of the devices had power. Yet the recorder, the one she had left running before her descent, was still on. Its audio feed showed no silence, only a deep harmonic tone fluctuating at intervals that matched her heartbeat. Hours passed before she managed to stand. The world felt unreal, colors sharper, sounds deeper, as if a second layer of perception had awakened within her. Every few moments, she felt a pulse from within her chest, faint but resonant, echoing the same rhythm she had heard inside the Grail chamber. Down in a row, the villagers spoke of strange lights above the mountains that night, columns of gold piercing the clouds, followed by a sound like a choir fading into the wind. Some said it was the return of the lost monks. Others whispered it was an omen. Elise said nothing. She knew the truth could never be spoken, only carried, and that the Grail's resonance now lived within her. The fortress was gone to the world's eyes, but not to its pulse. That night, as she wrote her final notes, the letters on her page began to shimmer. A single Latin phrase emerged, glowing faintly as if written by unseen hands. Memoria non perit. The memory does not perish. Elise smiled through tears. The mountain was silent again, yet she could still feel it breathing within her. 3 weeks after her return, Elise found herself summoned to Rome. The email bore no official insignia, only a cryptic line, concerning your recent discoveries in the Pyrenees. Within days, she was seated inside a cold chamber deep beneath the Vatican archives, surrounded by frescoes of angels wielding swords of flame. Across from her sat Cardinal Vittorio Mancinelli, head of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. His voice was smooth, his expression unreadable. "Dr. Moreau," he began, "we have reviewed fragments of your reports. You have found something, or anomalous." Elise hesitated. "What I found defies conventional archaeology. It's not a structure, it's a resonance," the Cardinal interrupted, his eyes narrowing. "Yes, we are aware. The Church has long known of Montsalvat. It is one of the 12 forbidden sites, relics of a time when man tampered with divine frequencies." He placed an object on the table, a shard of black stone etched with the same sigils she'd seen in the fortress. This was recovered in 1893 from beneath Saint Lizier. Those who studied it disappeared. Elise's pulse quickened. "Then you know what the Grail truly is." Mancinelli leaned closer. We know enough to fear it. The Grail was hidden not to protect mankind from evil, but from itself. You opened what should remain sealed. As he spoke, Elise's chest began to hum faintly, a low vibration beneath her ribs. The lights in the chamber flickered. The cardinal froze, whispering a prayer. "It's still with you," he said, voice trembling. "The resonance has chosen its vessel." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then, softly, Elise replied, "No, Eminence. It hasn't chosen me. It's remembering itself, through us." The stone on the table pulsed once, like a heartbeat, and the frescoed angels above them seemed to shiver in the candlelight. That night, Elise was escorted from the Vatican under the pretense of academic confidentiality. 2 men in dark coats accompanied her, their silence sharper than words. Yet as their car moved through the narrow Roman streets, she noticed a symbol carved subtly into the leather seat, a circle enclosing a cross and 7 dots. It was the same insignia engraved upon the gate of Montsalvat. When the vehicle stopped near an old monastery on the Aventine Hill, a hooded figure awaited her. "Dr. Moreau," he greeted calmly, "you have seen what most only guard in legend. You are no longer outside the order." "The order?" she asked, clutching her satchel. "The Ordo Velum, the Order of the Veil. We are descendants of those who built Montsalvat. Some became priests, others scholars, but our oath endures, to preserve the resonance until the world is ready." They led her into a subterranean library filled with scrolls sealed in glass, relics that pulsed faintly like the copper tube from Saint Lizier. On one pedestal lay an ancient stone disc engraved with planetary sigils. It vibrated softly as she passed. The hooded man turned to her. "You reactivated the fortress, didn't you? The mountain breathes again. We felt it." Elise hesitated. If Montsalvat is alive, then it's calling for something. He nodded. "Not for something, for someone. The resonance awakens when humanity nears the threshold between reason and ruin. The Grail stirs when the world forgets its light." As his words sank in, a bell tolled above, long and heavy, though no church stood near. The walls seemed to respond, rippling with faint gold luminescence. The man looked toward the sound. "It begins again," he whispered. "The fortress is not buried. It is preparing to return." Far away, under the silent Pyrenean peaks, the ground began to tremble. In the heart of Montsalvat, dust cascaded from the vaulted ceilings, and veins of blue light spread like roots through the stone. Ancient mechanisms, unseen for centuries, stirred to life. A hum rose from beneath the fortress, low and resonant, like the song of the earth itself. The copper conduits that Elise had discovered glowed with increasing intensity, their circuits aligning with the constellations above. It was as though the mountain and the sky were sinking after a long slumber. In the Vatican's archives, instruments flickered erratically. Magnetic compasses spun in circles. A priest-scientist monitoring seismic data crossed himself, whispering, "It's not tectonic, it's rhythmic." Meanwhile, Elise, guided by the Order of the Veil, stood before a vast underground mural depicting the fall of stars into a chalice. The pulse, as said the hooded man beside her, is older than the church, older than our calendars. Every few millennia, it reawakens. And always, something follows. Elise traced her fingers over the mural. What follows? He met her eyes. A convergence. Knowledge and chaos, light and shadow. The Grail's true nature isn't salvation, it's balance. Suddenly, the ground shook harder. Cracks split across the floor, releasing a faint blue mist that smelled of ozone and salt water, like the breath of an ancient sea. Far above, hidden among the peaks, the snow began to melt in perfect circular patterns, as if something immense was breathing beneath. Elise stared upward, realization dawning. It's not just awakening, as she whispered. It's remembering us. When Elise awoke the next morning, she was no longer in the same chamber. The torches had gone out, replaced by a soft silver glow that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Around her stood 3 figures in dark robes, faces hidden beneath steel masks engraved with crosses and constellations. "We are the Custodes Velum," the tallest one said, guardians of the veil. "Our duty began when the last stone of Montsalvat was laid. We protect the threshold between the world of flesh and the world of memory." Elise's voice trembled. "Memory?" The guardian extended his hand toward the wall, where the light formed shifting images, armies of knights, ancient rituals, the burning of Templar banners in Paris. "History as you know it is a shadow. The truth was sealed here, in the veins of the mountain." As she watched, the images changed, monks carrying crystal spheres, placing them in the fortress's foundation. Each orb contains a fragment of the Prima Lux, the first light, the guardian continued. It powers the Grail, and through it, the fortress breathes. "But why now?" Elise asked. "Why reveal this to me?" The silver glow dimmed, and the guardian's tone deepened. "Because the veil is thinning. Someone outside seeks to awaken Montsalvat for their own design, not to preserve the light, but to weaponize it. The pulse has been felt by more than us." A sudden clang echoed from above, distant, metallic, deliberate. The guardian turned sharply. They found the outer gates. Elise's heart pounded. "Who?" "The ones who betrayed the order long ago," he said, drawing a blade that shimmered with faint light. "The Red Cross has returned, but this time, it serves no god." The clash of steel reverberated through the mountain's hollow heart. Elise followed the guardians through narrow corridors as echoes of war chants, low, rhythmic, and ancient, rolled closer. The intruders moved with purpose, their torches burning with unnatural crimson flame. When the first of them emerged from the shadows, Elise froze. Their armor bore the familiar Templar cross, but it was inverted, painted in deep blood red. Their faces were masked by iron visors etched with sigils she had seen only in alchemical texts, symbols of inversion, binding, and entropy. "These are the Fratres Rubri," the guardian whispered grimly. "The Red Brothers. The ones who believed the Grail was not a vessel of light, but a gate." Elise's mind raced. A gate to what? "To the realm that precedes creation," he said. "They call it Lux Obscura, the dark light. They think through it, man can transcend flesh, become eternal, but it comes with a price no one can pay." The walls trembled again. Sparks flew from the ancient conduits as the crimson fire spread, feeding off the fortress's living circuits. The air grew thick, metallic, humming with dangerous energy. Suddenly, a Red Brother stepped into the hall before them, his blade glowing faintly as if alive. His voice was distorted by the mask. "The pulse has returned, and with it, the gate shall open. You cannot stop it, Elise Durand. You were chosen to witness, not to interfere." "How do you know my name?" Ishi gasped. He lowered his weapon slightly. "Because you are of us. Your blood remembers what your mind denies." Before she could react, the Guardian lunged forward, his luminous sword clashing with the crimson steel, light and dark colliding, releasing a burst that shook the entire mountain. Above them, Montsalvat's ancient mechanisms began to turn once more, as if the fortress itself was awakening to choose a side. The explosion of light and shadow threw Elise against a wall. Her vision blurred, sparks, screams, the metallic scent of ozone and blood. When her sight returned, the corridor was half collapsed, one Guardian fallen, the others dragging him away. The Red Brothers had vanished into the lower halls. She stumbled to her feet, her pulse syncing with the low hum of the mountain, rhythmic, almost sentient. As her trembling hand touched the wall, it glowed faintly, reacting to her presence. Lines of golden energy traced her veins beneath the skin, pulsing in perfect harmony with Montsalvat's living stone. The remaining Guardians stared at her, silent for a moment. Then he knelt. "Now I understand," he whispered. "You are not just an archaeologist. You carry the bloodline of Arveline de Montsalvat, the last keeper of the Grail." Elise froze. "That's impossible. My family came from Normandy, not." "Normandy was their refuge," he interrupted. "After the fall of the temple, the bloodline was hidden among scholars, painters, and healers, those who would never suspect their own inheritance." Images surged in Elise's mind, dreams she dismissed for years, visions of a golden chalice floating above a lake, a burning fortress, whispers in Latin echoing through smoke. All those years. I thought I was dreaming. "They were memories," the Guardian said. "The Grail does not choose with words. It remembers through flesh." Outside, the pulse intensified, the sound of the mountain breathing faster, stronger. The Guardian turned toward the trembling wall. "The Red Brothers will reach the heart soon. If they awaken it first, the gate will open, and neither world will survive the merging." Elise clenched her fists, the veins in her hands glowing brighter now. "Then we don't let them reach it," she said, her voice steady. For the first time, the Guardian smiled beneath his mask. "The blood of Arveline speaks again." They descended through spiraling tunnels lit by veins of living light. The deeper they went, the more the fortress seemed to pulse with awareness, as though Montsalvat itself was alive and responding to Elise's presence. The air grew heavy with the scent of old incense and iron, vibrating with an otherworldly resonance that pressed against her chest. Finally, they reached a vast chamber, a cathedral carved into the bones of the mountain. At its center floated a great sphere of translucent crystal, suspended in midair by unseen forces. Streams of energy, blue, gold, and crimson, flowed in and out of it, forming an intricate lattice that hummed like a choir of distant voices. "A heart," whispered the Guardian, bowing his head. "The Grail's true form, not a cup, but a living consciousness. The vessel of creation itself." Elise stepped closer. The crystal pulsed in time with her heartbeat. Images flashed within it, oceans forming, stars igniting, faces of long-dead knights, and then, ere her own reflection, bathed in light. The Red Brothers seek to invert the flow, the Guardian warned. If they reverse the pulse, the heart will fracture, and reality with it. Time, memory, spirit, all will collapse into the void before birth. A metallic echo rang through the hall. From the shadows emerged the leader of the Red Brothers, his crimson armor glistening like liquid blood. It was never meant to be hidden, he said. The Grail is not a gift, it is the final weapon of man. He raised a strange device, part relic, part machine, forged from Templar sigils and modern circuitry. It began to hum, drawing power from the heart. The entire chamber quaked. Elise felt a voice inside her head, soft, ancient, feminine. Child of Arveline, remember the light. She reached toward the crystal, feeling its warmth bloom through her palms. The Guardian shouted something, but his words were lost to the roaring energy now filling the chamber. Between Elise's hands and the heart, a bridge of living light formed, a merging of blood, will, and memory. And in that instant, Montsalvat began to awaken in full. The chamber erupted into chaos. The crimson device unleashed a surge of dark energy, twisting the air into spirals of red lightning. The heart of Montsalvat trembled violently, its light flickering between gold and black. The Guardian fell to one knee, shielding his face from the radiance, while the leader of the Red Brothers advanced, shouting words that echoed like an ancient curse. Elise stood between them, her hands still touching the sphere. Power coursed through her veins, memories, languages, faces she had never known. She could see the moment the fortress was built, the first knights kneeling beneath the mountain, the Grail descending like a comet of light. And she saw what came after: fire, betrayal, the Red Cross turning crimson with blood. The voice returned, calm, sorrowful, eternal. The Grail was never meant to save or destroy. It reflects the soul of those who seek it. Elise's body shook. Then what am I supposed to do? Choose. The leader of the Red Brothers raised his blade toward the heart. The world above has forgotten faith. Let it be reborn in shadow. No, Elise whispered, and the heart flared with blinding gold. A force rippled outward, throwing the Red Brothers back. Their crimson flames sputtered and died, leaving only echoes. The Guardian rose slowly, awestruck. You've merged with it. The light recognizes you. But even as the golden light filled the hall, Elise saw tendrils of darkness still weaving within it, the remnants of the Red Brothers' corruption. The mountain groaned, the stone fracturing above them. Balance, she murmured, remembering the mural. It's not about victory, it's about equilibrium. She turned toward the Guardian, her eyes glowing faintly with both light and shadow. To save Montsalvat, I must let both forces live. Before he could protest, she stepped into the beam of energy connecting the heart to the world, and vanished into its brilliance. For a moment, there was nothing, no sound, no breath, only a vast ocean of silence. Then, light returned. It did not blaze or burn but unfolded gently, like dawn through ancient mist. Elise floated within it, her body dissolving into streams of gold and shadow that intertwined in perfect symmetry. She saw the heart not as crystal, but as consciousness, a timeless entity dreaming the world into being. Its voice, now inside her, spoke with infinite calm. You have restored the harmony. Montsalvat was not built to protect the Grail, it is the Grail. Images cascaded before her, the Templars carving symbols into the mountain, guided by celestial maps, the fortress aligning with the stars of Orion and Lyra, secret chambers breathing with light beneath the stone. Every era, every keeper, every sacrifice, all had been leading to this moment. Above, the storm ceased. The Pyrenean sky cleared, revealing constellations that shimmered in patterns unseen for centuries. The fortress, long hidden by illusion, began to reshape itself, walls of light replacing ruined stone, towers rising like pillars of memory. In the Vatican, instruments that had gone mad suddenly stabilized. An elderly cardinal watched the readings, whispering, "A Montsalvat has awakened." Back inside, the guardian knelt amid the fading glow. Where Elise had stood, only a faint silhouette remained, carved into the stone like a luminous echo. Her pendant, engraved with the cross and spiral of Montsalvat, lay on the ground, pulsing softly. He picked it up, whispering, "Ere the light remembers its bearer." Outside, the mountain exhaled a final breath of mist that spread across the valleys. Locals who saw it would speak for years of a strange dawn, one that shimmered as if the sky itself had opened. And deep beneath, in the living heart of Montsalvat, a voice, serene and eternal, whispered into the pulse of the earth. Where the mountains open, the secret begins.